March 24, 1944. Stalag Luft III camp in Sagen. Inside Hut 104, a heavy stove is slowly being pushed aside on homemade rails. Beneath the brickwork lies the entrance to Tunnel Harry. The hatch is stuck. The Silesian winter frost has sealed the opening tight within the concrete. Roger Bushell stares at the mechanical watch on his wrist. The plan is already 90 minutes behind schedule. The sound of a boot hitting the frozen ground echoes just outside the wooden wall. A guard flashlight beams through the door crack. The entire room falls into absolute silence. 33 feet underground, the air is thick with the scent of sweat and loose yellow sand. Allied pilots lie along the narrow tunnel, only 2 feet wide. At the far end, the lead man pushes up the final layer of topsoil. The dim glow of snow appears, but something is wrong. The tunnel is 33 feet short of the tree line. The exit of Harry lies exposed on the white snow, right in the line of sight of the Goonbox watchtower 50 feet away. An MG-42 machine gun points directly at the spot where they are about to emerge. Will they risk crawling across this deadly gap or give up and face capture? How long can this secret stay hidden before the searchlight sweeps over them? March 1943. The north compound of Stalag Luft III officially opens for business. The Luftwaffe designed this place based on painful lessons learned from previous escapes. It was meant to be a fortress built to hold the most determined Allied escape artists. The camp architecture was a massive mechanical trap. All 15 wooden huts were perched on stilts 2 feet high. This gap allowed guards to crawl underneath and watch for any movement of the floorboards from the outside. The ash-gray topsoil hid a deadly geological secret. Dig down just 4 inches and fine yellow sand appears. Any grain of yellow sand dropped on the gray ground was an instant giveaway. The Luftwaffe believed no one could hide tons of yellow sand in such a gray environment. The defense system went beyond just sight. Highly sensitive seismic microphones were buried deep along the barbed wire fences to pick up the vibrations of a shovel. Patrols known as ferrets constantly roamed with long iron rods in their hands. They stabbed the ground in every corner, searching for hollow spaces. Before this, the wooden horse escape in October 1943 had tightened security to a suffocating level. Every small effort was crushed before it could even start. Guards in the watchtowers or goon boxes kept their MG-42 machine guns aimed right at the warning wire, which was a knee-high tripwire. Any prisoner who touched that wire would face a hail of bullets without warning. Into this tightened circle stepped one man. Roger Bushell, an attorney and RAF pilot shot down at Dunkirk, arrived at the camp with a massive escape record. Instead of acting alone, Bushell started a reverse psychological campaign. He gathered over 600 prisoners and formed Organization X. At a secret meeting in the shadows of Hut 104, Bushell made a crazy declaration. They would not dig 1 tunnel but 3 at the same time: Tom, Dick, and Harry. This plan was not meant to help a few individuals escape, but was an all-out assault on the Nazi security system. Bushell wanted to create chaos that would force Hitler to divert thousands of troops from the front lines to the home front for the manhunt. Bushell's strategy relied on redundancy and deception. If the Germans found 1 tunnel, they would smugly think they had won and relax their guard elsewhere. Each tunnel had to be dug exactly 30 feet underground. This depth was beyond the range of the seismic microphones. 600 men began operating like a military production line. Teams called Penguins were trained to hide sand in secret cloth bags along their pant legs. They moved slowly around the camp yard, secretly pulling drawstrings to sprinkle yellow sand into the prisoner gardens. Every step was a gamble under the eyes of the ferret guards. If a single bag tore, the entire plan would crumble at their feet. The biggest challenge was not the length, but the stability of the sand. The sand in Sagen was incredibly loose. Just a slight vibration from above could cause a cave-in, burying those inside alive. The prisoners were forced to borrow over 4,000 wooden bed slats to use as support frames. Every yard the tunnel progressed meant a bed in the camp became more fragile. To make up for it, they sharpened Klim milk tin lids into digging tools and connected them into air pipes. The shortage of supplies became obvious as daily property inspections took place. German soldiers began counting every nail and every piece of wood. The control system was slowly shrinking the living space of Organization X, pushing them to act faster or get caught. During the stalemate, Bushell discovered a small flaw in the camp design. Stoves in the huts were placed on thick concrete slabs to prevent tunneling from below. However, in Hut 104, the stove sat near a brick wall where a section of tile could be removed and replaced with a movable concrete tray. This was the starting point for Harry. An entrance, right under the noses of the guards, was kept burning hot to keep anyone from coming close to check it. prisoners used thick blankets to muffle the sound of the first pickaxe strikes through the brick layer. Above the stove, smoke still billowed out, hiding the figures vanishing into the earth. Late in 1943, a major event occurred. Tunnel Tom in Hut 123 was discovered by the ferrets when they accidentally struck the wooden ceiling with an iron rod. A massive explosion echoed as the Germans used dynamite to destroy the entire structure. Terror gripped the whole camp. The Luftwaffe believed they had eliminated the greatest threat. Bushell watched from a distance, his face cold and expressionless. He ordered all work on Tunnel Dick to stop so it could be turned into a sand storage area. All remaining resources, from bed slats to stolen electrical wires from the camp lighting system, were poured into one final gamble named Harry. In the early days of 1944, heavy snow fell at Sagan. Bushell realized they were running out of time. The air in the north compound grew thick with suspicion as the Luftwaffe brought in more guard dogs and set up extra lookout posts. The window was closing fast as American prisoners began being transferred to other camps. Harry had reached a length of over 330 feet, but the tunnel ceiling showed signs of cracking under the weight of snow and frozen soil. A small error in the angle calculation now could make them pop up right in the middle of the camp yard instead of the forest edge. Could Harry withstand the pressure of tons of sand and snow above before reaching the tree line? And as the Germans began a full inspection of bed slats, how long could the secret under the Hut 104 stove hold up? April 1943. Inside the shadows of Hut 104, work on tunnel, Harry shifted from preparation to a high-intensity engineering operation. A vertical shaft 30 feet deep had been completed, sitting well below the reach of the seismic microphones. Teams of 3 took turns lowering themselves through the narrow opening. The space below was only 2 feet wide, surrounded by loose yellow sand just waiting to collapse. The first pickaxe strikes were made in absolute silence. Any strong vibration could be picked up by the guards above. The countdown for every shift began. The weight of tons of earth above pressed down on every breath of the diggers. Ventilation became a life-or-death issue as Tunnel Harry stretched further from the main shaft. Jens Müller, a Norwegian pilot, built a manual air pump out of wood and old kit bag fabric. This system moved air through pipes made from Klim milk tins joined together with candle wax and torn blankets. One man had to pump continuously like a rower for 12 hours every day. If the pump stopped for even 5 minutes, oxygen levels would drop to dangerous levels, causing immediate fainting. The soft hiss of air moving through the milk tin pipes was the only sound sustaining life underground. A small mistake in connecting the pipes would make all previous efforts worthless. To speed up the work, a wooden rail system was installed along the length of the tunnel. Small trolleys running on wooden rollers, pulled by ropes made from bed sheets, handled the job of moving sand back to the main shaft. The prisoners named the rest stops Piccadilly Circus and Leicester Square. Here, the tunnel was widened into small chambers so the trolleys could pass each other. The pace of the rope pulling had to be perfectly coordinated between the digger at the front and the collector at the back. A broken rope or a jammed wheel would create a metallic clanking sound loud enough to alert the German seismic microphones. Every yard forward was a battle of wits against the sound sensors. The first disaster struck in mid-May. Wally Floody, the lead architect of the project, was leading a digging team at the 100-foot mark when a mass of loose sand suddenly gave way. In an instant, Floody was buried under fine yellow sand. The already tight space was completely sealed. The teammates behind could only see his feet struggling before he disappeared. They had to dig with their bare hands in a state of total panic. There was no room to back up and no extra oxygen. Floody was pulled out by his heels with only seconds of breath left. It was a grim warning from the Sagan soil that yellow sand never forgives a single mistake. The size of Harry grew in proportion to the amount of waste sand. The Penguin team had now grown to over 200 men, working non-stop to get rid of 200 tons of sand. Each man carried 2 long cloth bags hidden in his pant legs, holding about 22 pounds of sand per trip. They moved around the camp yard like zombies, secretly pulling drawstrings in their pockets to dump sand into vegetable patches. However, the weather began to change. As summer passed, the gray topsoil started to dry out, making the yellow sand more obvious under the sun. Guards began noticing strange color patches in the gardens. The attention of the Luftwaffe was focused on Hut 104 more than ever before. The first real sign of danger appeared on September 8, 1943. During a routine check of Hut 123, a group of ferret guards accidentally found the entrance to Tunnel Tom. A massive blast from German explosives destroyed the tunnel shortly after. The entire Stalag Luft III camp was shaken. The Luftwaffe believed they had completely cut off the escape route for the prisoners. Roger Bushell ordered all work on Tunnel Dick to stop and turned it into a backup storage area for sand. Harry was the last hope, but now it faced an unprecedented inspection of supplies. German soldiers began counting every single bed slat in every hut. By the end of 1943, Harry had reached 230 feet, nearing the final barbed wire fence. But a technical report from the survey team showed a serious error. Because they were stealing electricity from the camp lighting system to light the tunnel, the magnetic field had thrown off the compass needle. Tunnel Harry was no longer moving in a straight line. It was starting to curve toward the watchtower. If not fixed immediately, the exit of Harry would be right under the machine guns instead of the woods. Time was running out as the Germans began installing new seismic microphones along the northern fence. Could the digging team adjust the direction of Harry in the dark without collapsing the rotting wooden structure? And once the new microphones were turned on, would Harry be deep enough to keep the final secrets of Organization X? February 20th, 1944. Stalag Luft III is running dangerously low on basic supplies. More than 4,000 bed slats have vanished into the ground to build the support frames for Tunnel Harry. The bunk beds are now just rickety wooden shells, threatening to collapse at any moment under the weight of sleeping prisoners. 1,699 blankets and 3,424 towels have been used for soundproofing and air ducts for the milk tin ventilation system. The wood supply is completely cut off as the Germans begin counting every scrap of kindling in the camp. Physical pressure weighs heavy on the wooden huts, while Harry has stretched over 330 feet but still has not reached a safe exit point. Organization X begins a massive bribery campaign to make up for the shortages. Chocolate, coffee, and cigarettes from Red Cross packages are used as currency to trade for silk maps, ink, and pencils from corruptible German guards. A young guard named Werner becomes a key link, providing stamps and information on shift rotations. However, every item smuggled in is a new trail of evidence. Forged documents for over 200 men must be finished in total secrecy within dark rooms. The more people involved, the higher the risk of a leak. Ferret intelligence networks begin to notice unusual movements in the black market trade in the North Compound. Colonel Friedrich Wilhelm von Lindiner Wildau, the camp commander, feels an invisible tension growing. Surprise inspections jump from once to 3 times a week. Guards start using longer, sharpened iron rods to stab deep into the ground at suspicious spots around the stoves. The Luftwaffe does not need to know exactly where the tunnel is. They just need proof of a large-scale supply loss to shut down the entire camp and move prisoners elsewhere. The prisoners' breathing room shrinks with every yard of earth the ferrets plow through each day. The presence of guard dogs at the northern fence becomes more frequent. The work pace inside Tunnel Harry is forced into absolute silence. Digging teams must stop every 15 minutes to listen for movement above through the air pipes. A thick network of stooges is set up along the paths between the huts. A simple signal like folding a newspaper or dropping a bucket can make everyone in Harry hold their breath in the dark for hours. The distance between the digger and the guard on the surface is only 30 feet of earth. Every pickaxe strike against stone now carries the sound of a death sentence if the new seismic microphones catch the vibration. March 4th, 1944. A digging record is set, with 14 loads of sand moved in a single day. But right at the peak, a sharp crack echoes from the ceiling of Harry. A wooden beam made of bed slats snaps under the pressure of melting snow and damp soil. The entire digging team freezes face down. For the next 120 seconds, no one dares move or breathe. Above, the iron boots of a patrolling guard stop right near the crack, only a few feet from the top of the tunnel. A deadly silence fills the narrow 2-foot-wide space. Only when the German footsteps fade away do the hearts of the diggers start beating again. But the crack has left a serious, structural hole. Tension begins to erode morale inside Organization X. Claustrophobia breaks out among some veteran diggers after hundreds of hours in the narrow tunnel without natural light. Glances linger longer and words become fewer, replaced by doubt about a teammate's ability to hold up under torture if captured. Roger Bushell is forced to make cold decisions, removing some men from the escape list for fear they might mentally collapse on the fateful night. The atmosphere in Hut 104 becomes heavy. A small mistake in one person's behavior now could lead to the destruction of a plan that has lasted over a year. A major incident occurs when guards find a small trail of yellow sand dropped near the kitchen area. Immediately, the Germans order 20 key prisoners to be moved to another camp in Bavaria, including Wally Floody, the lead architect of the tunnel. This is a direct hit to the technical brain of Organization X right before the operation. Without Floody, reinforcing the cracked tunnel sections becomes extremely risky. The remaining prisoners realize the secret is starting to show through tiny gaps. They face a life or death choice to stop to save their lives, or to take the final leap on the upcoming moonless night, while Harry is still a partial secret. March 20th, 1944. Harry is less than 33 feet from the edge of the woods, according to map calculations. Bushell checks the progress one last time in the darkness of Hut 104. Civilian clothes and over 200 sets of forged papers are ready for distribution. Silk maps are sewn into jacket linings. Homemade compasses made from razor blades are tested for sensitivity. The enemy has increased searchlight sweeps along the north compound every 30 seconds instead of 60. The point of collision between Hope and the guards' guns is drawing near. The clock of Organization X is ticking toward the night of March 24th, the point of no return for everyone. Will the sudden departure of Wally Floody leave a technical error that Harry cannot fix in the final yards? And is the discovered yellow sand the start of an ambush already set by the Germans just on the other side of the fence? March 24th, 1944, 10:30 p.m. Inside Hut 104, a thick darkness surrounds 87 men holding their breath. Roger Bushell gives the order to begin. The entrance to tunnel Harry under the stove has opened. The lead man, Johnny Bull, crawls along the 335-foot tunnel in absolute silence. The friction of clothing against the wooden shoring sounds dry and sharp. Behind him, the others lie on wooden trolleys, pulled by bedsheet ropes through Piccadilly Circus and Leicester Square stations. At the end of the tunnel, Johnny Bull uses a short shovel to break through the final layer of topsoil. Snow falls onto his face. Cold wind rushes into the tunnel, but when he looks up, his heart nearly stops. The exit is not in the woods. It lies on the open snow, 33 feet from the tree line, and only 50 feet from the Goonbox watchtower. This 33-foot error is a hanging death sentence. A German guard stands on the tower, his MG-42 machine gun pointed straight this way. Johnny Bull lies still in the snow for 5 minutes. He does not move. He does not blink. Snow begins to cover his body in white. When the guard turns his head toward the west, Johnny Bull pulls the communication rope hard 3 times. That is the signal for trouble, but continue. A rope coordination system is immediately set up between the woods and the tunnel exit. The original plan of 1 person per minute is completely ruined. Now they must wait for the guard to turn away and for the searchlight to pass before signaling the next man to crawl out. The speed drops to 10 people per hour. Midnight. A siren tears through the quiet air of Sagan. Allied air forces are bombing Berlin 100 miles away. Immediately, the entire Stalag Luft III camp is cut off from power for an air raid blackout. Tunnel Harry plunges into total darkness. The stolen electric lights flicker out. In the narrow 2-foot wide space, dozens of men trapped between stations fall into a state of mechanical panic. Oxygen begins to run out as the Klim-Tin air pump weakens in the dark. The smell of grease from homemade lamps becomes a thick burn. No one can see the person in front of them. They can only move by holding onto each other's heels. A man in front stops. The group behind piles up, and the muffled sound of wooden trolleys clashing echoes right under the feet of the guards. Inside Hut 104, the pressure becomes suffocating. Over 60 men are still waiting for their turn to go down the shaft. The sound of German boots patrolling the wooden floor echoes right over their heads. Every time a small noise comes from the tunnel, those above must fake a cough or sing loudly to drown out the sound. Roger Bushell stands at the tunnel shaft, his face cold in the dim light of a grease lamp. He knows the clock is ticking toward the morning roll call. 2 a.m. The power is restored. The blackout ends. The line of men begins moving again, but 2 precious hours have been stolen. They are forced to speed up despite the risk. Wooden trolleys rumble along the rails, and yellow sand dust fills the cramped space. 3:30 a.m. Bram van der Stok from the Netherlands emerges from the tunnel. He crawls quickly across the open snow, following the rope signal, and vanishes into the darkness of the pine forest. Behind him, 2 Norwegian pilots, Per Bergsland and Jens Müller, also make it out successfully. However, a small cave-in near Leicester Square Station stops everything for 15 minutes. A bed slat snaps, and sand pours onto the shoulders of a Czech prisoner. Others have to use their bare hands to push the sand away, pressing themselves against the tunnel walls to create a path. The men escaping now do not have time to adjust their clothes. They run straight into the woods with yellow sand still clinging to their fake civilian suits. 4:55 a.m. Dawn begins to glow on the eastern horizon. The pressure of the new daylight is the greatest enemy now. At the edge of the woods, Johnny Bull sees a German guard patrolling an unusual route. Instead of walking along the fence, the guard veers toward the exit of Harry for a bathroom break. At that moment, Person 77 is starting to poke his head out of the ground. An emergency rope signal is sent, but it is too late. The prisoner has just stepped out of the hole and finds himself face to face with the guard. A second of deadly silence. The German soldier is stunned for a moment. Then he screams in terror and draws his rifle. At the tunnel exit, the alarm shots ring out. The MG-42 on the Goonbox watchtower starts firing into the woods. Searchlights from all sides sweep frantically toward the location of Harry. Inside Hut 104, those who did not make it down the shaft begin burning thousands of forged documents and silk maps in the stove. Smoke billows out in the middle of the chaos. 76 men have escaped into the forest, but hundreds of others are still trapped in the tunnel and in the wooden hut. German soldiers storm into Hut 104 with bayonets drawn. Roger Bushell looks out the window, knowing that the attack on the German rear has officially begun. But the price to pay is now beyond his control. 76 men are scattering across Germany in 14-degree Fahrenheit cold. How many will survive the dense manhunt of the Gestapo? And when Hitler hears the news of this greatest insult in Luftwaffe history, how cruelly will his rage fall upon those who were caught? March 25th, 1944, 6 a.m. Stalag Luft III is swept up in a mechanical fury. Sirens scream continuously. Commandant von Lindiner stands frozen before the steaming mouth of Tunnel Harry. 76 men have vanished. An emergency roll call is held under the aim of machine guns. German soldiers scour every inch of the wooden huts. In Hut 104, the ashes of thousands of forged documents are still hot in the stove. Underground, guard Charlie Pills is trapped in the darkness of Tunnel Harry, crying out for help until he is pulled up by the very prisoners he was meant to keep from escaping. The game is over, but the hunt has just begun. The Sagan order is issued immediately from Berchtesgaden. Hitler falls into a state of extreme rage when he learns the escape has paralyzed the German transportation and internal security systems. He orders his men to shoot them all. After arguments over international law, the number is settled. 50 men. Heinrich Himmler personally oversees the death list. On every road leading to Berlin, the Gestapo sets up heavy checkpoints. In the 14-degree cold, 73 men are captured one by one as they collapse in the snow or are spotted at train stations. They are not taken back to camp. Small groups of 2 or 3 are loaded into black Gestapo cars, heading toward desolate fields along the border. On lonely stretches of road, the cars stop. Get out and stretch your legs, the Gestapo officer orders coldly. As the Allied pilots turn their backs, the sound of Lugers and MP-40 machine guns rings out. There is no trial, no explanation. Roger Bushell falls on a roadside near Saarbrücken. James Cadenac is executed in Kiel. The bodies of the 50 men are cremated immediately at local crematoriums to destroy all evidence of bullet wounds to the back of the neck. The Germans claim they were shot while trying to escape again. This stands as one of the most brutal war crimes against the Allied air forces. April 1944. Ceramic urns containing ashes begin to be sent back to Stalag Luft III. 50 urns sit quietly in the camp office like a chilling warning. The remaining prisoners stand frozen as they see the names of their friends on the porcelain labels. A silence covers the north compound heavier than any chains. They do not break. In secret, they begin building a memorial right inside the camp, using the very materials left over from Tunnel Harry. A backup tunnel named George begins to be dug beneath the camp theater, not for escape, but for shelter if the Germans try to massacre everyone as the war ends. In that darkness, 3 lonely lights appear. Per Bergsland and Jens Müller reached Gothenburg by hiding in the anchor room of a Swedish ship. Bram van der Stok, after a solo journey through the Netherlands, Belgium, and France, climbed over the Pyrenees to reach Spain. These 3 are the only ones to successfully complete a home run. They are the only living witnesses to bring the story of Organization X back to the free world. In London, the British government vows to hunt down the killers to the ends of the earth. The files on the 50 murdered officers are moved to a special RAF War Crimes Investigation Unit. 1945. The war ends. Lieutenant Colonel Wilfred Bowes and Major Frank McKenna of the SIB begin a 3-year manhunt. They searched through the ruins of Germany, tracking down every Gestapo name based on scraps of paper and witness testimony. The killers had changed their identities, hiding in refugee camps, but justice does not give up. In 1947, in Hamburg, 18 Nazi officials are brought to trial. 13 men walk to the gallows. The shots in the dark from 1944 finally have an answer in the sound of ropes tightening in the cold wind. Today, at the old garrison cemetery in Poznan, Poland, 48 pilots of the Great Escape lie side by side under white stone markers. Stalag Luft III is now just cracked concrete foundations covered by the pine forest. In 2011, archaeologists dug up Tunnel George and found the ventilation pipes made from Klim milk tins still intact. They are the final physical trace of a spirit that was never broken. The escape did not end in a glorious victory, but in a cold echo of the price of freedom.